My beloved Madridistas, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. It's been a few days. We have so much to discuss. A lot going on. Listen, I'm going to get you guys up to speed on everything going on in Real Madrid, the sort of Mbappé mania taking place here. It looks like the city's prepared to forgive Kylian's past transgressions, but I'll tell you all about the presentation tomorrow, which I'll be attending. We'll talk about other Real Madrid issues, Lunin, Yoro, Davis, all that sort of stuff. But I also do want to talk about a couple of other things. The Euro and the Copa America, specifically Nico Williams, the sort of daily harassment that he's getting from Barcelona, not just the club, but the whole Barca media that surrounds the club. Unbelievable. I need to tell you a story about that. I also want to mention a couple of comments that Lamine made. Lamine Yamal, who's a wonderful player, I think is fantastic, but made a couple of unfortunate comments. And then we'll talk about the Copa America. Not just the brawl that you guys may have seen, the Uruguayan players jumping up to the stands and fighting with, not just that whole mess, but a kind of broader problem that I see in this Copa America, which looks to me like it's absolutely engineered for Messi to win. It's just I don't know how this guy influences everything, but there's something going on, and I do want to talk about some crazy coincidences. But anyway, listen, so much to discuss. Thanks for coming back. Let's get caught up on all this stuff. Let's get started. All right, Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, before we get to the Real Madrid stuff, just a couple of things I want to mention. Okay, obviously the final tonight, Spain-England, is going to be, fantastic. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I think Spain's been playing the better football, but in 90 minutes, anything can happen. That's what makes this the beautiful game. I mean, it's going to be very exciting. One of our boys, either Jude or Carvajal, is going to be lifting that trophy. So from a Real Madrid perspective, one of our boys is going to be very happy this evening. But I do want to mention one thing. Now, I've explained on this channel before that, half of this country sort of loves Real Madrid. I mean, adores Real Madrid. Real Madrid is a national treasure, and people understand that. Honestly, I think Real Madrid is, the eighth wonder of the world, and there's nothing in the world of sports. There's no standard of excellence like it, and that is appreciated, globally. But about half of this country really sort of out of envy or whatever, sort of hates Real Madrid. And for the last 20 years, the Federation, La Liga, the Movistar, the TV, the Comité Técnico de Árbitros, there is a sort of anti-Madrid mafia that surrounds football institutionally in this country. And I'm just going to give you another example of the kind of double standards that Real Madrid has to face. So let's discuss Nico Williams. This is fascinating. Now, some of you may remember Julen Lopetegui was the manager of the Spanish national team for about 2 years, up to 2018. And Lopetegui was fired. The Football Federation fired him because ahead of the tournament, he said that when the tournament was over, he was going to go manage Real Madrid. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong or illegal about this. He was simply saying that when he's done with this role, he will be joining Real Madrid as manager. Now, he was fired on the spot for saying that. And the federation, of course, the institutions that Real Madrid has to fight with on a daily basis here, they fired Lopetegui from his job as manager because, quote unquote, this was the excuse, it is destabilizing for the squad to be discussing anything other than the national team. So the fact that Lopetegui just mentioned that he would be leaving, that was enough to fire the man from his position. It is absolutely ludicrous. Now, let's take a look at what's happening to Nico. So Nico Williams is a wonderful young player. He plays at Athletic de Bilbao, one of the great talents, I think, young talents in the world today. He's finally in a massive international stage, and the world is appreciating just how good he is. And all of this is wonderful. Now, naturally, big clubs are going to take interest in the player. Now, Barca has every single day for the last 2 weeks, every single day, there's not a day that goes by that either the president of Barcelona, Laporta, or somebody in the management team of Barca, or the media that Barca sort of controls, every single day Somebody coming out saying Nico needs to join Barcelona. Nico wants to come to Barcelona. Barcelona has the money to buy him. We've already discussed it with Athletic de Bilbao. Every single day, the player himself has said, please leave me alone. I don't want to talk about my future. I'm happy at Athletic de Bilbao. I want to concentrate on the tournament. It doesn't matter. The president of Athletic de Bilbao has had to come out and say, the federation needs to protect this player. He is being accosted. He's being pressurized from a distance. He's trying to play a tournament. Has anything happened? Has there been any sort of reprimand to Barcelona for doing this? Has the league said anything? Has the federation said anything? So basically, Lopetegui, just for saying what his next job might be, that was so disruptive that he had to be fired. But Barca can spend their entire day accosting this young player in the middle of a tournament. But that's okay. So look, this is just another example of the double standard that Real Madrid is constantly fighting with. And I've described to you guys in previous videos how unfortunate it is that anti-Madridismo has been institutionalized, entrenched in the organizations that run football in this country. And this is just another example. But anyway, I wanted to mention that because it's worth mentioning. Now, one other thing I just wanted to mention about Lamine, I've been saying, for those of you that follow my channel, I've been saying for the last few months, Lamine is an amazing player, and he's one of the best young players I think I've ever seen. And he just has incredible technique and maturity and decision-making. He has so much promise. I think he's a wonderful player. Now, the other day, he's 16 years old, plays for Barca, and the other day in an interview, I think in a press conference, he said something to the effect of, I will never play for Real Madrid. Now, I just want to say, I understand that you feel your colors and you're loyal to your colors, but I just think that when you're 16 years old, you should never use the words ever or never, okay? When I was 16 years old, I didn't know my ass from my elbow. I think, I do understand the loyalty that he's trying to project, but I think it's so unfortunate because, I can't imagine that his agent would have been very happy with those comments because you're very young and the world is ever changing, and we have no idea where the hell Barcelona is going to be in a few years. If they make it. So I just think, it was a slightly unfair. I think he was trying to show loyalty, and I respect that. But, I think when you're 16 years old, you need to be a little bit more careful with what you say. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Now, okay, let's move over. Before we get to Real Madrid, let's talk about the Copa America. Now, obviously, the first thing we need to discuss is you may have seen the scenes of the Uruguayan players during the match against Colombia, after the match going up into the stands and actually getting into physical altercations with spectators. They were claiming that their families were in that area and that they felt that their families were at risk, were somehow being, I don't know, pushed or insulted or something along those lines. And a massive sort of brawl ensued. And it's something that we really haven't seen. I mean, this sort of... it took me back to like the 1970s or late 70s. It seemed like such a crazy thing to see in 2024. And I have to say, I don't quite know who to blame because the players should know better. The spectators, if they were provoking or harassing the families, they should know better. But then again, where was security? I mean, the United States is hosting, not just going to be one of the hosts of the World Cup, but also hosting the Club World Cup next summer. Now, where the hell is security? I mean, I have no idea how something like this could happen in the U.S., which is a country that's sort of known for its kind of hardcore policing. So anyway, that was very, very unfortunate. But a broader comment I want to make about the Copa America. And listen, I put out a video, at the beginning of my channel, sort of explaining why I don't think Messi's the GOAT. I think he's an amazing player, one of the best, but I don't think he's the GOAT. And one of the things that we talked about was the Ballon d'Ors that, half of them were completely unwarranted. I don't know how this guy's entourage manages to influence these things. But if you look at the Copa America, there's something really kind of shady going on, okay? It just feels like the entire tournament was designed for Argentina to win because, first of all, if you watch it, the refereeing, which I've mentioned before, the refereeing of Argentina against Chile was appalling. I mean, it was the most scandalously... It was so obvious that Argentina had to win that match. And it kind of got you thinking. And then if you start to scratch beneath the surface, you run into more and more little anecdotes. Okay, first of all, the tournament is being played where Messi plays. The final will be held where Messi plays, Miami. Now, before the tournament, the AFA, the American Football Association, actually opened an office in Miami, which strikes me as a little bit odd. I mean, why would they open an office in Miami? That just, it seems a little odd. Now, before the tournament started, a guy named Chiqui Tapia, who's the president of the Argentinian First Division, there was a big ceremony, and they gave him, the mayor, the keys of the city of Miami and all this stuff. I don't remember the city of Miami giving the keys to the head of the Colombian First Division or the Brazilian First Division. I don't remember that. So, that strikes me as a little odd. I also found it odd that the opening match, the inaugural match of the tournament, now the U.S. is the host nation. What the hell is Argentina doing playing the inaugural match? It was very strange. And you had Kun Agüero bringing out the trophy as they do in the inaugural match of a tournament. Kun Agüero, of course, is an Argentinian player. Like, why? Is Argentina hosting it? Because it certainly felt like it. Another interesting kind of comment, there's an Argentinian newscaster, reporter. Her name is Morena Beltran. And she was literally, in the inaugural match, she looked like the fourth referee. Like, what is she doing in the middle of the pitch with the refs? Like, all of this seems very, very strange. Of course, you had the Infantino, the head of FIFA, kissing Messi, which we can maybe let that one slide. But then if you look at the groups that came out for this tournament, the way that the groups came out, Argentina would not play a top 20 FIFA ranked country. They would not play a single top 20 ranked FIFA country until the final. The path to the final is insane. They have, the groups looked very, very strange from the beginning. And, another thing I noticed, the ref that was involved in the Chile match was then selected to do the Ecuador match, which, of course, Argentina had to win. So it just seemed very strange. So the same ref gets designated to the same country like twice in a group stage. Just very, very strange. And then, of course, just watching it, every 50-50 call goes Argentina's way. It's just, look, I don't know. We a lot of people have sort of, have articles out there talking about how much more money CONMEBOL makes if Messi is playing on the pitch, in terms of ticket sales and blah, 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 how much more money they will make as opposed to him not being, in the final. And it does smell like there's something behind this. But look, I have to mention it. I'm really sorry. I'm following the Copa America and I'm excited about the final, but something kind of stinks about this tournament, and I just had to mention that. Okay, let's turn to Real Madrid matters, very importantly. Now, tomorrow's the Mbappé presentation. You guys may have read the shirts sold out like crazy. I think broke every single record. You can't get them. Now they literally exhausted all the Mbappé shirts. Now I'm going to give you guys an interesting anecdote. As you know, I'm a member. We were cuatro. We have 4 abonos in the stadium. So we receive an email saying, at 10 o'clock, on this day, we will distribute tickets for the Mbappé presentation. So you do it online, right? And you can, solicit, every socio can solicit a seat. It's a special seat because obviously the way that they do the presentation, you can't go to your usual seat because obviously part of the stadium will be blocked and people behind wouldn't be able to see. So they have to reallocate socios for that event. So anyway, just to tell you guys how crazy this is. So I log on 15 minutes before 10 a.m. when they were going to distribute these. So I'm 15 minutes early. And when I log on, I already have 58,000 people ahead of me in the queue, which is just completely insane. It took hours for my turn to come up. So we did end up getting 4 tickets in the Fondo Sur. The rest of the stadium was completely packed, was basically sold out. But it just gives you an idea. I think that tomorrow's ceremony, the welcome ceremony, is going to be spectacular. And I will be there, and I'll take some of that footage to share with you guys. But, it looks like Madrid has decided to forgive the kid and embrace him because, Mbappé mania is very palpable these days in Madrid. So very, very exciting. Okay, let's move on to other things. Just to comment on Lunin, obviously, there's a lot of discussion about whether Lunin's going to stay or go, and it kind of, every article that comes out sort of suggests something different. I think that there is a serious possibility that he's going to go, and obviously, Kepa is following this very closely, and the word is that it is possible that if Lunin decides to leave, that we will be looking for another goalkeeper. So Kepa is not guaranteed that second spot if Lunin leaves, but we'll be following that obviously in the next few days. In terms of Lenny Yodo and Davies, this is kind of where we are. The Lenny Yodo thing, by all accounts, is close. There's been a spanner in the works in the last couple of days that Man United has intervened and apparently are offering pretty significant money to Lille and are sort of getting in the way of the transaction. Real Madrid may not be able to match Man U in terms of the amount. What I heard was £54.6 million, which is considerably more in euros, might be, 65 or 70 euros. But, I think that the player wants to come to Madrid, and I think that ultimately the player decides where he goes and where he's sold to. So I do think that the Lenny Yodo thing will drop in the next few days. In terms of Davies, now, the Alphonso Davies thing is interesting because it's kind of gone very quiet. And so I listen to the YouTubers here and other people and the journalists, they're speculating, what could it be? Is this a tactical thing? Is this, have Real Madrid decided to kind of go quiet? Or it's very difficult to know exactly what's going on. In some cases, the club does like to keep things hush-hush because they think that too much publicity, brings friction into the negotiation. And sometimes the selling club doesn't like the added attention. So we don't really know what's going on there, but I'm confident that Davies will come. Like I say, I just think it would be very silly for Bayern Munich to leave money on the table because in 12 months he'll come anyway. So I do think the Davies thing will happen. One small comment in terms of, I did want to mention Militao because the Alaba injury, you guys might be aware, has gotten worse, and that there's not a lot of information coming out in terms of how Alaba is progressing, but it does look like that's gone wrong. I don't know if he needs another operation, but Alaba doesn't look like he's going to be recovering anytime soon. So Militao's form becomes extra critical. And if you look at sort of Militao's performances with Brazil in the Copa America, I think they were really solid. I mean, there were a couple of situations where he really showed the kind of speed and savvy of the Militao of old, especially against Darwin Núñez. There were a couple of instances where I think Militao looked a lot sharper than he did at the end of the season with Real Madrid. So I'm a little bit, more encouraged in terms of Militao's form. But obviously with Alaba and his injury being prolonged, we're going to need Militao to step up. But it does look like he's coming back, so I'm somewhat encouraged. Now, one final kind of cool thing to mention. Obviously, the new numbers came out, which I think are really interesting. Fede now becomes number 8, which makes sense. It certainly does. That's like obviously iconic number, given who wore it last. Kylian will be number 9. Arda will be number 14. I think all of these things are not entirely unpredicted, but certainly interesting. But listen, that's where we are. Tomorrow I'm going to go to the. I'll be going to not tomorrow, day after. I'll be going to the Mbappé presentation. I'll show you guys some footage of that. But anyway, I will see you guys in the next video and update you on anything interesting. But I wanted to give you my thoughts on all the stuff going on in the last few days in the world of football. But thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, a la Madrid.